can kick us off.
Thank you, Kendrick. Aloha, everyone. Mahalo for taking the time today to join us for the Molokai Destination Management Action Plan, DMAP, for 2026 to 2028 webinar. My name is Kuya Adolfo. I'm the Destination Manager for Molokai with the Hawaii Tourism Authority. Joining me on the call today is HTA Planner Kendrick Leong and fellow destination managers from our neighbor islands, Miss Patty Ornelas from Kauai, Megan DeGaia from Maui, who also is the destination manager for Lanai, and Blaine Andrade from Oahu. We also have Dr. Brandon Fairchild from Ward Research, who has been a key partner throughout this plan's development, joining us at most of our community meetings and working closely with us during the data gathering and drafting phase. A couple of quick notes before we begin. This is a draft plan, and we're still in the public review window, which closes Monday, March 2nd at 11:59 p.m. Mahalo to those who have already submitted comments. The purpose of today is to walk through the DMAP in a simpler way, highlight what we heard, and show the specific actions we're proposing so people can respond to them. If you have any questions as we go along in this webinar, please use the Q&A feature. We'll answer what we can today and we'll follow up where needed. You can also email me your comments directly if that's easier. My email will be on the last slide of this presentation. One more note, today's webinar is being recorded and we will post the recording later today along with these slides on our website. Next slide, please. Here's our agenda for today. We'll start with the welcome and purpose, then talk about destination management and why it matters on Molokai. We'll then cover the lessons learned and what's different this cycle for the DMAP, including the statewide direction to focus on hotspots and site-specific actions. After that, we'll walk through the planning timeline and then how we identified the hotspots and the proposed actions. The second half of this presentation is the heart of it all. The priority actions for our priority hotspot, Halawa Valley and Mo'aula Falls, the site under strain, which is Kumimi Beach, and then the island-wide actions that help the site work hold up over time. We'll then close with what's happening next, including how to comment on the draft. Next slide, please. HTA is the state agency responsible for tourism, and our role here today is destination management. That means improving the natural and cultural resources that residents and visitors value. DMAPs are the 3-year work plans that come out of that. They're built from community, industry, and government input about tourism impacts, and they outline collaborative actions to address those impacts. HT's role is to convene and help coordinate, and we can't do this alone. I want to underline something. A DMAP is not a marketing plan. It is not a visitor growth plan. It's a management plan grounded in what our community says needs attention. Next slide, please. This slide helps us to explain why Molokai needs its own approach. Molokai has a very small share of statewide visitation, only about 30,000 visitors in 2025, around 0.3% of Hawaii's total visitors. But what's important is how visitation shows up. Day trips are very common. About 42% of Molokai visitors in 2025 were day trippers, spending 1 day or less on island. For comparison, Maui County was about 4% total. That difference matters because day trips concentrate impacts into a short window, where people go, where they stop, how they park, and how prepared they are. We also see a long-term decline. In 1995, it was around 83,000 visitors a year, compared to about 30,000 now. So we're not talking about how do we get bigger. We're talking about how to manage what's happening in a way that protects the island and keeps it livable. Even with lower volume, impacts can feel much bigger on Molokai because we're small. Infrastructure is super limited, and there's a strong expectation the island remains our home first. With that context, I'm going to pass it over to Kendrick to walk through the lessons learned, the guiding principles, and the planning timeline for this draft. Kendrick?
Thank you, Kui. The last round of DMAPs covering 2021 to 2023 were one of the first community-driven destination management plans anywhere, crafted to address the issues here in Hawaii. The focus of the last DMAPs was on convening and supporting communities across multiple, pretty broad issues from safety to access and communications. This round, we're taking that broad focus and honing it down into hotspots and site-specific actions to make sure our collaborative impact is tangible and measurable on the ground over the next 3 years, 2026 through 2028. Whereas the last round of DMAPs were developed, during and around COVID, with this round of DMAPs, we structured our planning timeline to make frequent stops in community, both to identify and prioritize hotspots, as well as to make sure our proposed actions align with what we are hearing on the ground. We're also very fortunate to have an on-island presence statewide through our destination managers. In the second half of last year, we held a series of public input sessions on every island to document strain at sites and hear about what needs to be done. Kui has also been a great help in talking through with our entire team about what she's been hearing in her individual outreach on Moloka. We then took the holiday season to analyze our quantitative and qualitative data before preparing this public-facing draft. Next month, we'll take the comments on that draft to prepare a version for our island advisory groups and HTA advisory board to finalize before publishing a live version in April. Because the actions and proposals in these DMAPs are subject to the legislative budgeting process, I think it's vital and a priority that we finalize a version that our legislators can stand with us on during this legislative session. And the main way we seek to accurately reflect communities' input is through our island advisory groups. Kui, could you speak on your team on Molokai?
Yes, thank you, Kendrick. And I really am lucky to have worked with a really great group of advisory group members. As many of us know on Molokai, we wear many hats and we sit in many seats of responsibilities and contributions to our community as a whole. So all of those things were taken into account as we came up with a list of these advisory group members. It has been an honor to work with these people who have spoken plainly and honestly on all the things that have to do with this DMAP. And I'm very, again, honored to have worked with these wonderful group of individuals who have put a lot of effort into what this result of a DMAP looks like. And then I will pass it back to Kendrick for the framework information, the really fun stuff, as you.
Thanks, Kui. In our work, we have to make the way that we identify and prioritize hotspots across the state transparent and sound methodologically. So I wanted to talk through how we take what we're hearing from community and kind of run it through a rubric so that we can come to priority hotspots that we can get down to business on over the life of the DMAP. So we organize the process around three core questions. The first, is this site strained? Second, how serious is that strain? And third, can we realistically respond within the scope and span of the DMAP? There are four factors that help us understand first if the site is under strain. First is access. Are roads, parking areas, trailheads, or shoreline access overwhelmed? This is how people get to the site. Next, once people arrive, is the on-site capacity enough to handle those volumes? Are the trails, lookouts, shoreline areas, or beaches, facilities being pushed beyond what they were designed or able to support? Next, we listen closely to how often sites were raised in community meetings and what kind of resonant impacts there might have been. Especially important here is how community members describe the strain. Is it noise, traffic, or other inputs or impacts that affect these neighborhoods where these sites are? And then finally, site degradation. Are we seeing erosion or litter or growing maintenance burdens at the site? Then we asked about context. So how serious is the strain? We looked at cultural sensitivity, including wahipana or story places and specific cultural markers like heiau. We recognize that all Aina is sacred here, but here we're talking about places where there are particular cultural features that heighten the impact of current usage. We also looked at environmental sensitivities, and these refer to fragile ecosystems or native species, habitats, and places that are increasingly stressed by climate impact. Then, are there any safety risks at the site? Cliffs, wave surges, flooding, traffic conflicts, these can all cause injuries at hotspots. Next, how does social media or commercial marketing affect the visibility of the site? And is that promotion exacerbating the current issues there? And then finally, local economic benefit and reciprocity. By this, we mean, are there tangible benefits to the surrounding community because of visitation? Or are the costs at these sites outweighing the benefits? Put another way, are the current usage patterns supporting the local businesses or stewards, managers, or residents in and around the site? And then finally, we looked at feasibility and viability of action. This is where stakeholder input was especially important. We considered how often sites were raised as concerns across meetings and how urgent participants described the strain that was identified. Then whether there was clear jurisdiction, ready and willing management partners, are the costs realistic? And do these things that we're hearing align with HTA's statutory mandate within this 3-year DMAP term? I want to pull out jurisdiction as especially important. HTA, we don't enforce laws or manage beaches, trails, roads, parking lots. We don't issue permits. Those authorities sit with other agencies. So our role as outlined in the DMAP is to convene, coordinate, and support alignment, and support the folks in which this kuleana lies. It's not about acting alone. All of this requires collaboration, and collaboration takes time, an agreement on scope, funding, and authority. So the clarity of kuleana and openness to action among landowners, managers, and our sister state and county agencies is vital for action as we're identifying hotspots. And so to put it all together, the 3 prioritization categories are basically asking, is this a place where action is both needed and actually possible? Once we identified priority hotspots, we started on considering possible actions. In many cases, ideas for action at these hotspots came directly from Moloka residents at our input sessions, in individual outreach, or in discussions with KUI. We evaluated proposed actions based on 2 considerations. First, how does the proposed action align with what residents with ties to the site envision for that site? Stakeholder suggestions shaped our starting point, whether that's actions for enforcement or visitor education or on-site data collection. And second, feasibility. What can HTA ourselves or with our sister state and county agencies and community partners reasonably accomplish through the 3 years of this plan? So in thinking about hotspots and proposed actions, we structured this DMAP to specifically focus on hotspots, 1, so that we can measure our progress, and 2, so that you can see that progress on the ground. We'll soon talk about how we came to prioritize Halawa Valley and Mo'aula Falls as a place where HTA can lead destination management efforts. On the way to Halawa, Kumimi also emerged on our rubric as a site under strain. I think through our statutes, I'm confident that we can lead on several issues at Kumimi that warrant targeted action at scales that approach a priority hotspot. Finally, while not a main focus of this DMAP, we recognize that island-wide actions and strengthening ways to better educate visitors on residence terms, more townside, can also relieve pressure from hotspots and sites facing increasing strain. So with the fun stuff out of the way, I'll hand it back to you, Kui, and let's look at some hotspots.
Thank you so much, Kendrick. I'm starting off with Halawa Valley and Mo'ula Falls. These are the community identified priorities. And as you can see on the slide, there are a lot of priorities from us as residents. The wide range of priorities just goes to show how sacred Halawa is to all of us. Halawa is sacred of course, first and foremost, to the families with the lineal ties and kuleana to the valley. But what we also heard is that even residents who don't live there or have those connections still recognize Halava Valley as a place that deserves a very high level of respect and protection. That shared understanding came through very clearly in the community and the advisory group meetings. These community identified priorities were clear and were discussed at length, which is why it ended up being our priority hotspot. I'm kind of just going to read through these bullets in a very simple way, so please follow along. First is protection of a living cultural and agricultural landscape. Halaba Valley isn't a hike, it's a lived in place with lineal stewardship, cultural protocol, and kuleana. Second is community authority over visitor access and behavior. This was shaped by resident priorities and the realities of the land ownership and access. Third is reducing unmanaged and unauthorized entry, especially with the unguided access that creates so many safety risks, trespassing, and harm to the Lo'ikalo and the many kapu areas in the valley. Fourth is clear orientation before entry. I want to emphasize the understanding of the place and the expectation for conduct and not promotion. Fifth is supporting lawful, community aligned guided experiences while discouraging unpermitted activity that undermines stewardship and safety. Sixth is safety on the East End Road. And this was another topic of discussion that came up, while not directly related to Halafa Valley. And there was talk within the community to acknowledge the rough conditions, the limited emergency access, and the safe places to pull over that doesn't negatively affect residents. And the last one matters a lot. We want to progress at the pace of Pilina. This isn't a site where we're just going to come in with a one size solution. It has to move relationship first, community first. So I guess the biggest takeaway from this long list of slides is that for Halava, the direction is protection first, and then the plan is built to start with careful community-led approaches. Next slide, please. And these were the management actions that came out of it for Halava. The first proposed action is HV1. It's the foundation. Develop a community-led managed access framework for Halava Valley. The goal is to explore and define the sustainable approaches for visitor entry, orientation, and guidance grounded in cultural protocol and the realities of land ownership and access. And to be clear, HV1 starts a planning and framework process without presuming the outcomes or a specific model inside the valley. It's the front end work that we have to do to understand what's possible and what the community wants before anything gets implemented. HV2, design and install interpretive and safety signage at Halava Overlook. This is meant to support a safer behavior and clearer understanding at a controlled point before entry into the valley without turning the valley into a promoted attraction. And then the last one, HV3, explore deterrence options to reduce visitor traffic beyond Kumimi Beach. This is about the safety and reducing non-essential driving along the narrow corridor that also has, the road conditions aren't always the best, using practical tools that don't rely only on enforcement. So for Halava Valley and the Falls, the action package is to do careful community-led framework first that supports safety and understanding at the overlook and reduce unmanaged pressure past Kumimi and further east. Next slide, please. Our site under strain, Kumimi Beach or Morris Point, these were the community identified priorities. A little bit of a shorter list, but still very much a list that calls to and acknowledges the multiple conversations that were had around this area. I just want to note here, while island-wide actions aren't the main focus of this slide, they're an important part of the plan. Those island-wide actions strengthen destination-wide systems, so the site-specific work at places like Kumimi and Halawa can actually hold up over time. So it's a sustainable plan versus just talking about it and not having the awareness and the assessment from our community. The plan calls Kumimi both a challenge and an opportunity. It's one of the few clearly signed public access points on the East End. So it's loved, but it's also very vulnerable. The priorities are practical, protect nearshore reef ecosystems and fishing grounds, especially the shallow areas that, there's trampling or litter. Regular visitor orientation, so reef etiquette, rubbish disposal, and safety expectations are clear and long-standing. Improve site care and basic infrastructure focused on rubbish management and cleanliness without inviting overuse or changing the character of the beach, which is super important. Support local knowledge holders and educators. These are the people who are already modeling, Malama Aina and Kuleana in real time in this area. And then finally, use approaches that fit Molokai, small, low impact investments that can be sustained for a long period of time. Next slide, please. And from those priorities, these are the proposed management actions. KB1 is pilot a limited peak period visitor steward presence at the beach. This is a 1-year pilot focused on the times the site is the busiest to improve safety awareness, educate visitors, and coordinate light site care. KB2 is to install durable trash receptacles and related signage coordinated with rubbish removal through the island-wide Opala action. And finally, KB3 is to install durable, locally designed educational signage. The goal here is that when stewards aren't available, that there is always some presence of education to visitors or to those who are maybe unaware of the guidance, and it still has and carries a Molokai voice. So the whole community approach is to support safe stewardship where it's already happening and add basic infrastructure in a way that doesn't change the place and finally make education consistent, even without stewardship presence. Next slide, please. And then before I get into the island-wide actions, I kind of just want to pause on Kaunakakai as a site of opportunity. This isn't about turning town into like a visitor attraction or spectacle. It's about strengthening Kaunakakai as the place where visitors can get oriented and understand our community's expectations and take care of basic needs so pressure doesn't spill into those other two areas. And then here are what the community, here's the list of the community identified priorities that came out of discussions was a community-led welcome and orientation. So visitors encounter and understand our values, expectations, and norms before moving through the island. Second, strengthen Kaunakakai as the main point of interface between residents and visitors, where stewardship, care, and clear communication set the tone for respectful behavior everywhere else. Third, a durable, locally governed platforms for visitor education, reducing reliance on temporary or externally driven orientation efforts. Fourth, more reliable access to clean, functional public restrooms. This was something that we got a lot of input from our private business owners. So this would reduce pressures on their private business to provide this service, as well as support basic dignity for our residents, workers, and any other visitors. Next would be the improved upkeep of shared public spaces, including our parks, walkways, wharf adjacent areas, and town facilities that shape residents' daily life and visitors' first impressions of our community. And then finally, a clear coordination, kuleana, and accountability for public space care across our state, county, and land holding entities. So the best way that I would probably sum up this slide would be that Kaunakakai is the place where we can set the tone in our own community, in Molokai's voice, while with practical basics that help everyone. Next slide, please. And from those priorities, we have put together these two proposed management actions. KKI1 is establish a modest community-led visitor center outpost. The idea is pretty simple, is to have a locally guided point where visitors can get oriented, kind of hear what the expectations are for Molokai in a Molokai voice, and get directed to the right places in the right way. And then KKI2 is convene a coordinated stewardship dialogue for Kaunakakai. This is about getting the right partners at the same table. So Kuleana is super clear for the public space care, restrooms, and the shared areas that shape daily life for residents and is the first impression for our visitors. So this Kaunakakai work is really about setting the tone early and making sure the basics are covered in a way that's durable and very much locally guided. Next slide, please. I want to shift to the island-wide actions, and I'm going to name something up front. A lot of what we heard in community meetings wasn't just about one site, it was about systems around visitors for our entire island. What people learn before they even get here, what information is online, how we deal with Opala during peak periods, and whether agencies are coordinating in a way that we residents can actually see and feel. I also want to acknowledge the good work already happening. One example is DHHL's Malama Cultural Park Special Area Plan, which directly addresses an action item from our County of Maui's Molokai Island Community Plan. This is a kind of long-term planning that supports the same outcomes this DMAP is aiming for. If you're interested in learning more about those efforts, please contact Sybil Lopez with the County of Maui Planning Division, and we'll make sure to drop her email in the chat if you want to get those plans emailed directly to you or if you want to ask any questions of her. So back to the island-wide actions. The DMAP draft describes these island-wide actions as the supports that help site-specific work hold up over time. And there's 8 of them listed here. Number 1, a shared community practice to care for sacred and sensitive places. 2, improve accuracy of visitor-facing online info. And by data hygiene, we just mean keeping the basics clean and current, like current hours, correct access points, what's closed and what's not appropriate to visit, accurate maps and directions, and especially taking down outdated or misleading content which is on the web that sends people to the wrong places. Like, so this is through social media or whatever else is out there. And I'm happy to report that a lot of this work is already underway, especially with our own HTA and Go Hawaii websites. But I've had the opportunity to talk story with some residents who have sent very site specific, like even from TripAdvisor or Expedia, where there are activities that are listed there that we're already in the process of clarifying or getting updated so it's not incorrect information and we're not sending visitors who are just Googling things to do and going in the wrong way. Moving on, number 3, seasonal Opala management for select hotspots and site under strain. 4, make our emergency protocols visible and actionable for visitors and hosts. Number 5, event surge management playbook for major canoe races. Number 6, community voiced visitor orientation and welcome campaigns. Number 7, a microgrant and training program for community-based tourism initiatives. And then finally is the regular community communication and engagement cycle for the DMAP implementation. And on that note, I just want to share like a super exciting thing. Megan DeGaya, who is our destination manager for Maui and Lanai, as well as myself, have launched a Maui Nui monthly newsletter to keep the communication consistent and easy to follow. We sent out our first one last month, and our next one will go out hopefully tomorrow by the end of the week. And Megan will be dropping the sign up link in the chat for anybody who's interested in signing up to receive this monthly. The whole point was to be resident facing, to share information in a way that's very simple to digest, but as well as if you want to learn more, you can contact us directly. This will not be coming from a an email marketing platform. It'll come directly from us, from our emails, so you can reply quickly and seamlessly there and ask us any questions that you may have. Next slide, please, which I believe is our final slide. And lastly, the next steps, like where are we in this timeline of publication? So the most immediate thing is that the public comment window, it does close next week, Monday. So if you have time, not time, if you are able to make comments online, then that's the one way to submit your comment, or you can email me directly. Just shoot me a quick one. Many people know that my office is in the back state building, so even if you want to come in and talk story, and I can help you with submitting comments. I know that sometimes online commenting platforms can be a little bit overwhelming, so I'm happy to help anyone submit their comments myself as well. Um, the final content draft is scheduled for March 16th, where it will go to our HTA board for review at the end of March. And then the planned publication is set for the end of April. If you'd like to follow up directly with me on this webinar, or if you have any other questions, you can reach out to me or Kendrick. Our contact information is listed online. And I do know, and I apologize, that some folks are receiving their emails from me, and you see that the first name is in there. That is very much Kui Adolfo. I apologize. I am trying to see if the state will change it, but they will not. But Caroline Adolfo is indeed Kui Adolfo. So again, so sorry. And again, I just want to mahalo everybody for attending today. I see that we had some questions, but if you would like to ask any other questions, we have some time to address a few, don't we, Kendrick?
Yeah, I think some of the questions that I'm seeing are related to accessing the draft on our website. So I thought it might be good to walk us through how you get to the Moloka E draft plan. Let's wait for
Will
that
you
to
be sharing it on the, oh, thank you.
yeah, there we go. You should be able to see this landing page. Thank you, Blaine, for directing one of the questions to this page. Uh, if we go here and we go halfway down, there's a widget that has our draft DMAPs on here. There's two ways you can get to the Moloka E1. First is by clicking this table of contents, and the islands are arranged northwest to southeast. If we go to Moloka E draft DMAP here, you'll see this landing page. The second way, and let me go maybe to another one, is to click on summary. This is our table of contents. You can scroll down to Moloka E here and then jump to the Moloka E DMAP. As we're going through the plan, and mahalo to everybody who have already left comments, you can click directly in the document. You don't have to add a name, you don't have to add an email, but we do ask that your comment is related to the thing that you're clicking on. So feel free to use a pseudonym or use an email here, and then you'll go ahead and add your comment, my comment. And then comment type just flags for us, is this a suggestion or is this a question? And then once you've agreed to the T&Cs and privacy, you can post your comment. We'll say that all of these comments are anonymous, so you won't be able to see, not anonymous. These comments are private, right? So if you choose to provide your name, like that'll show up. But these comments will only be viewable to the DMAP team, so myself, destination managers, and then our partners at Word Research. So you don't have to worry about, your perhaps sensitive comment being looked at by anybody else, but the drafting team. And then I'm also seeing in the Q&A, it's not working on Chrome, but Safari seems to work. I have heard that you might need to accept cookies for this thing to show up. But worst comes to worst, Kui, can I volunteer you to be in your office should anybody have
Yes,
concerns?
for sure. And
Solid.
then with the email, you can email me when's a good time for us to meet, even if it is in, Pohana time, that's fine as well.
Thanks. Then below the widget here, we've been posting our DMAP webinars that have already been happening. So Hawaii Island, et cetera, et cetera. If you click on the recording, that'll take you to the webinar recording on YouTube. If you click on the slides, it'll pop open a PDF of the slides that we presented at each webinar. So at the bottom here, after this session, I'll get to uploading this recording to YouTube and then making these slides accessible as well and on our website. So you should see Moloka February 25th draft TMAP webinar recording and slide up here shortly.
Yes, and after this webinar, I also will be sending a post-webinar email to you folks directly so you don't have to necessarily click around the website because I know that was also a point of concern during the community meetings was the easy access to those things.
And looking here in the Q&A, there's a lot of great suggestions. Just know that we're recording all of the suggestions and we'll find ways to incorporate that into our next draft.
Any more questions? Okay, I think other than that, feel free to stop by the office, email me or text me, and we can get the comments submitted by Monday.
Yeah, a double promotion for signing up for the Maui Nui e-newsletter. I was very pleased with how that summarized everything that's going on for you and Megan as well, and the great way to remain engaged with these folks.
Thanks, Kendrick. Okay,
Okay,
mahalo everybody for
mahalo
attending.
everybody.
Have a great rest of your day. Aloha.
Bye-bye.